fresh signs of progress in efforts to end the conflict between the US and Iran. According to reports in US media, Washington and Tehran have made progress in recent discussions and are moving closer to a possible framework agreement aimed at ending the war. Reports are also suggesting that the US and Iran are considering extending the ceasefire by another 2 weeks as diplomatic efforts continue. Officials familiar with the talks say both sides have agreed in principle to hold another round of negotiations, although the date and the venue are yet to be finalized. The last round of marathon discussions in Islamabad ended without a breakthrough after 21-hour-long talks. Regional mediators are now pushing to extend the current ceasefire and facilitate another round of talks between the two sides. Fresh signs of progress emerging in the efforts to end the war in West Asia. Media reports in the US claiming that the US and Iran have in principle agreed for a second round of talks, second round of negotiations that will involve a possible framework agreement aimed at ending the war. Now, the same US media has also reported that while both sides have agreed in principle to hold another round of negotiations, the date and the venue for those second round of talks are yet to be finalized. Bear in mind, this comes on the back of the first round of talks, which lasted for 21 hours in Islamabad. The first round of talks between the US and Iran since the Islamic Revolution of Iran back in the year 1979. A historic moment, although those talks ended in a stalemate without any breakthrough. And now, even as the possibility of the 2-week-long ceasefire lapsing is staring at the face, both sides have spoken to each other, and reports say that they are intent on extending the ceasefire by another 2 weeks, even as they sit down for the second round of talks. We don't know where and when those second round of talks will happen, but for now, media reports in the US claiming that US and Iran have agreed for those second round of talks, and what's left to be finalized is when and where they will have those talks. Even as those talks are getting scheduled, reports also emerging that both the US and Iran are looking at extending the ceasefire by another 2 weeks. Officials familiar with the talks have now said that both the US and Iran are going to sit down for the second round of talks, and those talks could result in a basic framework, a basic agreement to end the war. And those talks will also come with the possibility of the extension of the ceasefire by another fortnight. These are reports emerging from US media, which says that mediators and facilitators of the talks are looking to push the ceasefire first, the extension of the ceasefire, even as the diplomatic efforts continue. Bear in mind, a contingent from Pakistan is currently in Tehran, carrying messages from the US administration to Iran to lay the groundwork for those second round of talks after the first one in Islamabad. For now, there is no confirmation on whether the second round of talks will take place in Islamabad or elsewhere, but a Pakistani delegation is currently in Tehran facilitating the next round of discussions. All efforts in top gear to find a solution to end the war at the earliest, and in that process to continue the ceasefire that is already in place and keep it in place for a longer period of time. Fresh signs of progress, possible progress, that one, the ceasefire will be extended, and second will be the next round of talks. We have my colleague Sneha Koshi now joining us on the phone line. Sneha, very important development, second round of talks. We don't know when, we don't know where, but we do know that it's a matter of time before we get to know that.
Absolutely, Krishna. This is a very important news that is coming in at this point. One, that there is an extension of ceasefire that is likely. Two, that there are chances of talks that are also happening in principle, where the two nations, United States and Iran, have decided that they can go ahead with the talks. Of course, formally, we don't have any confirmations from either of the countries, but there's no denials as such. A breakthrough of sorts, because this was a ceasefire that was supposed to be for 15 days, set to get over, but now there are likely to be talks between US and Iran, at a time when there seems to be only escalating blockades. What are we really talking about? This is, again, blockade versus blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. This is about several nations getting affected, trade getting affected, to say the least. And now two things that are emerging. One, there is a possibility of the ceasefire being extended by at least 2 weeks. And there is a possibility of talks between the United States and Iran happening. Both of these are extremely important developments that is being reported at this point. Of course, Krishna, as you maintain, as you just said, that we don't have details of when and where and what, but nonetheless, the initial signals that are coming in at this point is very important.
Latest breaking news coming in on the conflict in West Asia. Fresh signs of progress in efforts to end the conflict. The US and Iran are reportedly in agreement over holding the second round of talks. Sneha Koshi joining us with an update. Thank you, Sneha, for bringing us that update.